standing. And you're going to need, and then find a partner. You're going to need somebody to do this exercise with. So if you're by yourself, go find somebody who's not. Because it takes 2 people to do this. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand. Okay, come on out. Jackie, come on out so that you can meet up with somebody else who's raising their hand. Because everybody needs a partner. You got somebody right here? Okay, over there. Natalie, I think there's somebody over there. Who still doesn't have a partner? Has everybody got one now? All right. Pick an A and a B. Doesn't matter. You're both going to get to do the exact same thing. It's just a matter of who goes first. All right, keep it down so that everybody can hear the exercise. Now, A, put out like this your non-dominant hand. Non-dominant hand. B, you're going to press down on that hand, not yet. You're going to press down on that hand while the person holding the hand out is going to try and hold it up. You're going to be gentle. This isn't about hurting somebody. All right? So, but do give pressure and see how strong you feel. Go ahead, do that now. Put pressure on it. There you go. You feel the pressure? Good. Now, A, the one holding out your hand. Close your eyes. And imagine a titanium rod, a mile long, running through your shoulders and through your arm. A mile long. Put out your arm and close your eyes, because that's the only way you're going to get this, is if your arm is out and you're visualizing this rod that's running through, that goes forever, for infinite, running through. Keep that vision in your mind, a titanium rod running through your arm, strengthening that arm because it's now titanium. And now B, press down on it again and see if there's a difference. How many of you noticed the difference? Raise your hand if you noticed the difference. Excellent. Now switch. And so now, non-dominant hand out and press down on it. Okay, good. Now close your eyes and imagine this titanium rod that goes on infinitely, running through your shoulders and arm, that goes on forever, that's in motion, that's strengthening and holding it up. When you feel like you have that vision, once again, have the other person push down on that arm. Raise your hand if you feel the difference. Okay, have a seat. Power of the mind. There you have it. Right there. There you have it. If you ever doubt the power of the mind, remember this exercise. Right there. That's simple. It's an exercise I learned when I was practicing Aikido. This is what is possible when we use our minds to strengthen what it is we want to physically create, what we call manifest. This is it. This is how we use our minds. Now, this is not science of mind. Because Ernest Holmes talked about holding a vision and then letting it go. What we did is something different. And yet, it's still powerful. And so I've been thinking a lot about what it is to be a spiritual leader and what it is to bring that to a group of people who are on entirely different levels. And I want to thank Murray for our walk yesterday out at Elk Island, because it sparked some ideas that I had not thought of before. And that's really fun, so thank you. So I've talked before. So what you're going to hear from me today, I really just came to me yesterday and this morning. I've talked to you before about the 4 kingdoms of consciousness. To me, when you feel victimized. By me, when you first start getting your sense of power. Through me, when you start realizing that this sense of power doesn't all have to be here. It's larger than you. It's what I call soul's intention. And then there's as me, where we understand ourselves to be these spiritual God beings. What came to me from our walk is that this is really about remembering. And I'm going to get more into that. When there are people who walk in this center who are in pain. They're hurting. Their lives aren't working out. Things are going wrong. And like any of us, when we're in pain, we want pain relief. And, like if my body's really hurting bad enough, I'll go get me an ibuprofen, because I think that's a miracle drug. Right? Well, that's what happens here. People come in, and this idea that we just did is one of the best ways to quickly have some pain relief, is realizing that mind over matter, that if we get into that space, like when I first got into this teaching, the idea of doing a single spiritual mind treatment in the morning, what we call our form of affirmative prayer, and then that'll do it for the day, did not work for me at all. I needed something more like this, where I was visualizing, like all day, turning the affirmations into mantras, bringing them in to those moments when I was in the most pain, when my life felt the most like it wasn't working. And what we're bringing into those moments is the clarity that actually everything is working, because we are magnificent spiritual beings. We are powerful. And just because it doesn't look like it's working, like my song, My Life's a Mystery, like that Zen thing, we don't know. I mean, now I look back on my life at all the things I thought weren't working and how they led to where I am now. That without all those things, I would not be the guy I am now. Every single one of them served in their own way for me to bring forth that which is mine to do, that which is mine to be. But when we first come in here, maybe you're in pain. And so the first thing you learn is how to not be the victim of your life. How you can be powerful. And in doing so, you need to remember. And what I realized in our walk yesterday, that all we're really doing is we're walking through this path, this journey, especially those of us who know there's more than whatever the physical is that's going on, is spending more and more time remembering the truth of who we are, remembering that we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings, remembering that what is happening in whatever, however it's unfolding in front of us is also God, that this is all just God beingness. And when we first get into this teaching, remembering is the hard, it continues to be the hardest part. And that's what I realized. It doesn't matter what level you're up to, but in the beginning, remembering in the morning, I know lots of folks who talk about, I meditate in the morning for 5 minutes and I feel fantastic, and then there's the rest of my day. That happens because we forget. We get caught up in whatever the drama is that's happening in front of us. And when we first get into this, of course we forget. We've spent a lifetime not even knowing this exists. I remember somebody saying to me once, I do my spiritual practices before and after work. And that's a person who didn't realize at the time, until I pointed it out, that actually you're doing your spiritual practice all day long in every moment of your life. You just don't remember that that is what you're doing. And that's what happens, right? We get caught up in the drama and we don't remember what it is we're doing. And so in a to-me state, we don't even know that it's a possibility. We don't even know that it exists. We just think life is just pushing us around. And then we get to a by-me state where, wait a minute, I don't have to feel like life's pushing me around. I can feel like I've got some power here and I can step into that. But to do that, it's not just about, and when I hear the words treat and move your feet, that is still a by-me consciousness. That is still a not remembering very often how powerful you truly are. And I'm not saying don't move your feet. I'm not saying we shouldn't do stuff, but there's a way in which there's that still that push to it. I mean, even even in the state of when I was doing, like I had this affirmation, time is on my side. And I told you guys about that, how I was late. And it became this mantra, and I'm repeating it over and over and over and over for myself. And it changed. It made life change out here, because I was changing in here by continuing that affirmation until it sunk in. That's still by me. I was still working really, really hard. And that's what we have to do when we first get going. It's not like we can bypass by me to through me. It's not like all of a sudden, unless you're somebody special, certainly not me, you got to remember by constantly reminding yourself. Am I making any sense here? It's all about remembering. You got to remind yourself. I had to remind myself when I first started in this teaching, all the time, every day, all throughout the day. Oh, yeah, and used visualization and what we call in science of mind, and I'm sure I'll remember that at some point. Mental equivalent, that was it. Mental equivalent, right? But in the beginning, I didn't just hold it for a minute or two in the morning and then just let it go and think, okay, it's done, because I didn't have that level of trust in me. Because I didn't remember. Oh, yeah, I'm a really powerful, creative, spiritual being. So, of course, whatever's going on must be working for me. But remembering that when things look like they're just not going well at all takes practice. Practice, practice, practice. So we have this mission statement here. We teach spiritual practices that create joy-filled lives. And as I've been thinking about that and meditating on that and being with that, it really occurred to me how different the spiritual practices are that are needed for a joy-filled life, depending on where you are in the process of remembering. I mean, even me, I have moments where I'm back into me. They don't last long anymore. That's the best part. They don't last very long. It takes a little by me to remind myself, and then all of a sudden I'm back to through me, which is just sitting back going, this is great. And then if I'm lucky, I may get to as me. I get to visit as me about, I've got this meditation in the morning, which has really been incredible in terms of helping me experience as me for at least 5 to 10 minutes every morning, which is an incredible thing that then I'm just laughing at the rest of my life, and really, and then it kind of seeps into the rest because I keep remembering, right? You keep practicing this stuff year after year after year, and all of a sudden remembering becomes a little easier. And that's when all of a sudden you're at a place called through me. where you've been practicing so long, you start recognizing the difference. There's a couple of things I've started to notice that no matter what stage you're at is the same. Because so much is different at each stage. But there's a couple of things that are the same. And one of them is what we did last week in the ritual. One of them has to do with turning off your critic. I have not met a single person in my entire life who needed more of an inner critic. Not one. We all got it. If there's anybody here who thinks that they don't have an inner critic, I want to meet you. And so the best way to support the quieting of that inner critic is to remember that what they're saying isn't even relevant to the beauty and wonder of who you are. And that's why a ritual like last week, where you're walking through this tunnel of love and people are speaking to you these affirmations of your greatness, can be so touching. It's so touching because it's a reminder. And so Margot had this great idea that we that we might set up a phone tree and for simply reminding each other once a week with a phone message that says how great you are. And I love that idea. So I'm going to see if we can actually put that together. Because I think that that's a big piece of discovery and of remembering is being reminded. That's why we sit in community, right? Not for somebody else to be critical of us too. We got enough of that, or is it just me? The idea is to be lifted up, right? Especially if you're hurting. But even if you're not, if what you want to do is just get to that next stage of through me and as me. Once you get through the by me and, you can feel, or you're at by me and you're setting goals and you're making things happen in your life. And that's great. And you want support because maybe you're getting a little burnt out of having to work so darn hard. And this teaching is fantastic. When it comes to supporting you, the Science of Mind teaching is just fantastic in teaching you and helping you remember to move to that state of knowing that your soul's intention has got this, that you don't have to carry it yourself. That's where these classes, the fundamentals, the foundations class, the class that Tammy was talking about, power of decision. These are incredible classes, even if you've taken them 10 times to remind. Sometimes getting back to basics is exactly what we need, right? Sometimes that's exactly what you need to help you get to your next step. Hearing something again. The first class I taught when I got here was a spiritual practices. And the book in there was this thing called You. And more than 60% of the class had read that book already. And every single one of them said they found something new in it. Every single one. Because that's how this works. It's a deepening. And the more we deepen, the more we remember. The more we remember, we get to take it into each moment of our lives. And then the transformation occurs. What we embody manifests. How we embody is by practice. To abandon the truth in your hour of need is to not understand the truth. And yet, that's the ticket. That's the thing. That's what we get stuck on. Well, I'll think about that later because I've got this thing to do. And then you reach a place in your practice where all of a sudden what you're saying is, First, I'm going to remind myself of who I am, and then I'm going to take action. Now you're through me. When you remember enough to remind yourself who you are first, then take action. Then it's your soul's intention that's guiding that action instead of your smaller self that thinks it knows best. It's a real shift that takes time, takes practice. But when we do it, whoa, things really start to shift. And then there's this next stage of ASME, where all of a sudden there is no goals. There is no to do, I've got to get this done for my life to be okay. This experience out here needs to change for my life to be okay. My hero in this, you've heard me say, is Paul Gyatso, tortured for 33 years. And as far as we know, didn't really, I'm sure he had bad moments. I mean, it's hard to imagine somebody getting tortured every day for 33 years without having a bad moment here and there. But talk about somebody who was willing in the midst of the worst experience you could imagine, remembering that it is never about this outside experience. That to truly create a joy-filled life is always in here. And no matter what is happening out here is possible. That's ASME. When it becomes irrelevant what's happening out here, and it's all about what's in here. And when I have those moments, it brings forth a compassionate lightheartedness that just feels amazing. Have you ever had a problem that you were really concerned about? And then in the midst of worrying about that problem, a bigger problem happened? And all of a sudden that smaller problem didn't matter anymore because now you're dealing with the bigger problem? Am I the only one that's ever happened to? Okay. This is the opposite of that with the same effect. When you start to begin to be in that ASME place, all the things you thought were important that you were worrying about fall away. They become not important anymore because you see the bigger picture. And when I get to have those moments in the morning, I am laughing so hard at myself for all the things I was worried about, all the things that concern me, because now I got to sit in this place of, even if it's only for 5 minutes, it feels great. Sit in this place of, oh my God, this is all perfect. That's ASME. And that's what's possible when we keep at our practice of remembering. It's really hard to be upset when you remember the greatness and power and presence of who you are. Can you see that? It's really hard to think, oh my God, if this doesn't work out. It's really hard to sit in a place of worry when you really get the trust and power and presence of who you are. So wherever you are in this, traveling along this path, I invite you to take on just remembering a little bit more often than you do now. Because that remembering in and of itself is what will guide you. Take these classes because they deepen your reminding. Be involved in the community because you're surrounded by people who want to remember this too. This is how we do this. This is how we build together. This is how we absolutely impact the world, is by doing this kind of work right here and right now. Awakening consciousness through spiritual community. That's what we are. So join me in deepening this way of being. It's amazing. This is an amazing journey you're beginning, or you've been on for a while, or you've been on forever. Who knows where you are in all this? You do. But I promise you, the more you remember, the more beautiful and joy-filled your life becomes. Thank you. I love you.